Okay, welcome back to the Mojave Gardener. We're going to do a quick garden update. We're preparing for our fall garden. We've been taking out a lot of the plants that have already produced as we harvest off of them that really won't produce any substantial fruit off of them. So we've been pulling those. So you'll see that the garden has a few less plants right now as we prep for our fall garden. Let's get to showing around the garden. Here we are in the garden, the old garden. We've got things slowly growing here. Our strawberries are starting to put off runners, and they're actually taking root. So next year we will have a lot of new strawberry plants. Our onions here are starting to bulb, so and the new onions are coming up nicely. They're growing really well. Our pepper plants, now that we have harvested all of the cabbage, are starting to do well. In fact, we have our first pepper right there. Still don't have any fruit on our tomatillos here, or tomatillos, however you want to pronounce that. And we've been harvesting a lot of broccoli here. As you can see right here, there's a head started there. But as we harvest them, we've been cutting them off to get light into the rest of the garden. Our peppers down here aren't doing that well because they don't have a lot of light, because they're being shaded from everything else that's growing in here. We finally caught the culprit that was eating our squash here, a yellow squash. You see we have some male flowers there, some female flowers, and a nice big one started there. So tomorrow we'll probably harvest that. And down here on our volunteer tomato plant that came up from stuff that was probably a tomato that was dropped last year. If you can see down in there are 4 nice big tomatoes growing. And our carrots here, I don't know how well they've done. I haven't dug around them to see how much of a carrot there is down there, but the tops of them didn't do too well because they were too covered. I tried to plant too densely in here this year, as I expected things to be done and harvested before other things came up, and it didn't work that way. Our weather this year just was not cooperative. Our potato plants here are still chugging along. Something's eating on this one pretty good. Some mites, I think, or aphids. This one, he still hasn't put up very much plant up out of the ground. This one here, it's doing pretty good. And our spaghetti squash, we've got one down here on the ground, and some of these up here are starting to get close to harvest, but not quite. That was our first one there. It's still not quite. It's starting to turn yellow there, but is not ready. This one here, it's hasn't really grown any, but it's starting to turn. And there are miscellaneous ones all over here. And the peppers that we put into the grow bags are doing really well. They've adjusted and started to grow now. We had to move them in underneath the shade cloth because our 100+ degree weather. Got two of our tomatoes here that got set back. They're starting to put off new leaves. So hopefully we'll get some Roma tomatoes here in about a month. Seems to be about what it takes. We don't start getting stuff until late August into September. The grapevine here is doing pretty good. I've trimmed a few long leaders off of it because they didn't have any fruit on them. They were just taking energy from our fruit. Our little lemon tree here is growing slowly, but it is growing. It's got some new limbs it's putting off here. Our pepper plants out here are slowly coming in. They were getting a lot of shade off of the grapevine, so hopefully cutting that back helps with it. The sweet potatoes are starting to do well. This one here was 8 down to just a stub, and it's come back now and really taken off. I planted another one in here because they ate that one down to the ground and it didn't come back up. So we still have stuff that's eating on things around here. And yesterday we caught another 2 ground squirrels because they have been coming up here and eating on our sunflowers. As you can see here, they've ate the top, and then the birds sit down here, and they've just about completely stole everything out of these 2, and they're not even quite ripe yet, so it makes it difficult to harvest anything when it's not ripe, and then birds get it. So this sunflower has been shading these pepper plants here, plus they were shaded from the let's see, in here we had not broccoli, we had cauliflower in here, so they had a slow start. Our pepper plants out here are starting to take hold. The 110 degree weather has really wreaked havoc on a lot of this stuff in the garden, but our tomatoes are loving the hot weather, and they're starting to take off here. We still don't really have very much fruit on any of these. These we don't have any fruit at all. The blossoms just keep falling off. I've been trying to do some research on what I can do to help remedy that. Last year I was able to use a blossom set spray that worked, and once I did that one time, then the plants just took off. But that hasn't worked this year. Our watermelon plants here are making a comeback after the squirrels ate them down. We have one tomato here. It's a Frankenstein tomato. It was multiple blossoms. So, as you can see here, I got what this is a paint strainer for a 5-gallon bucket, and that works really well to keep the birds out. It doesn't keep the squirrels out. They just eat right straight through it. So, and our orange tree there, we ended up losing all the oranges that had started, and it's actually making a nice little tree there now, which is probably what it needed rather than putting off oranges. We had something eat the oranges off of it, as they were just little bitty oranges. And we'll head over to the corn and beans here. And we haven't gotten any beans yet. We pulled off a bunch of corn. Corn was not dense enough, didn't come up dense enough to fertilize the corn well, so all of our corn has been half ears. but it still tasted good. But the pickling cucumbers have really done well. We've pickled already probably 2 gallons of pickles, slicers, and also some spears. But everything's looking good now. For a while there, it wasn't looking too hot. I'll head in here to the greenhouse. I finally found my other shade cloth for the top of this, so now it has a full shade across the top, and then what was draped over the top now runs around the front here and over to the side over here about 3/4 of the way, so we've got good shade. The temperature is not getting up too high. Let me turn off this fan for a minute. Okay, the battery went dead on my other camera, so I'm back to one of my old cameras here, and we've got, as I was saying, I don't know if it caught on the last recording, but we've caught 3 or 4 tomato hornworms on our tomatoes in the greenhouse. That was the first tomato worms that we got were in here in the greenhouse. I've taken and I've put in a couple of suckers in here into the flood and drain. The bigger one here was the first one, and then down here the second one that's looking a little ratty. It's finally coming in, so that tells me that it's putting off roots and starting to grow now. A few of our little flowers here, and our pepper plants from the store-bought peppers. They're starting to look good now that I have the shade over this end of the greenhouse. The afternoon sun was just blistering hot, and it was taking it up to 115 in here. We got our herbs over here. They didn't like the sun either, the heat, so they're just now starting to recover from that. I think in our last video, it's been a week or so since I made one, we had planted lettuce in here, but because it's been so hot, it's just during the summer you cannot grow lettuce. So I've got some of the herbs growing in here, and I tried a tomato plant that wasn't doing well outside that I replaced. I brought it in here, put it in here thinking maybe it'll come back, but it hasn't yet. Our lettuce from the spring, the 2 plants that we're letting go to seed, that one, if you can see it up there, has gotten way up into the top of the greenhouse. This one fell over and is still growing, still doing well. It still gets water. It still gets water here, so as you can see, very resilient. But I'm going to turn this around. But being the old camera, I can't tell if I'm in the shot or not. So, but if you like our videos, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you're notified whenever we have a new video up. And please share our videos so we can grow our channel. We're hoping this next year to find some property to move on to and expand our garden into possibly growing livestock also. So have a great day and keep gardening.